Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we've got a mission, and it's a big one. We're going to unpack what might be the most, revolutionary roadmap for global infrastructure I think I've ever seen.
It's definitely dense. We're looking at Tedford's global living ground mesh and how it combines with Dr. Eva's 8-step AI agent process.
And our goal, our real mission here, is to break this down. We need to get this into simple, clear steps. Almost like you're explaining it to a third grader.
Exactly.
Right.
Because if we can do that and still keep all the critical technical details, then we can really understand the impact this is going to have on, well, everything. Global safety, humanity, all of it.
The complexity is the barrier, right? But I think we found the right analogy to unlock it.
We did. And it really helps make the scale of it all click into place.
Okay, so let's try it. If you think of the entire planet, Earth, as one giant living thing, then the global living ground mesh all those sensors, those interconnected nodes. That's the planet's nervous system. It feels things, it sees things, it measures things.
Precisely. It's the sensory organ. And Dr. Eva's AI agent process, that's the blueprint for building the brain that connects to that nervous system.
So the brain thinks, it remembers, it learns from what the nervous system is telling it?
And most importantly, it protects. It protects the whole organism. So together, you get this thinking, learning, self-healing system for the planet. Our job today is to figure out how you actually build that brain, starting with the very first nerve ending.
To understand the brain, you have to trust the senses. And in this system, that foundational piece, the part you absolutely can't do without, is the Tedford Technologies node.
Right. It's the eyes and the ears.
And it's operating right where the risk is.
That's the key. Source One calls it a self-contained safety-critical intelligence unit. And that word self-contained is so important. It operates at the edge.
An edge just means it's not in some far-off data center.
Exactly. It means the intelligence is right there. It's in the vehicle. It's built into the bridge. It's inside a device in your hand.
So if I'm, say, a first responder, the little black box doing the thinking is literally feet away from me.
That's it. Its whole purpose is real time, right now, risk awareness, alerting, decision support. And this is the kicker. It has to do all of that, even if the internet goes down.
Okay, so it has to carry its own intelligence with it.
It has its own physics models, its own awareness. That independence is what makes the whole safety architecture work.
Let's get into what it actually does. Environmental awareness. The source says it consumes heterogeneous live inputs, which is a very technical way of saying.
It takes in everything, all sorts of different data flavors.
Yeah.
Yes, it's getting GPS or more broadly PNT signals from satellites.
The stuff we all use for navigation.
Right, but for safety critical decisions, things happening in fractions of a second, satellite signals are actually kind of slow. And they can be blocked and spoofed.
So the node can't rely on that alone.
Not at all. It relies heavily on its inertial sensor.
Or inertial sensors. That's measuring its own movement from the inside, right? Like an inner ear?
A very, very sophisticated inner ear. We're talking accelerometers measuring how it moves forward, backward, up and down. Gyroscopes measuring how it tilts and turns. The pitch, roll, and yaw.
So by constantly measuring that, it knows exactly how it's moving, even with no signal from the outside world.
Precisely. And it's also taking in vehicle telemetry. How fast the engine is running, if the brakes are on, the steering angle. It's listening to broadcasts from other smart infrastructure nearby. It's a total fusion of information.
Satellite signals its own internal motion, the status of the vehicle it's in, and what its neighbors are telling it. That's a lot to process.
It is. And that leads to the most important rule of the whole system, cross-validation. The node is designed to trust no single source.
It's constantly checking one signal against the others.
Continuously. It's a defense against what the source calls false certainty.
False certainty. I love that phrase. It's so descriptive. Give me an example of where that would be absolutely critical.
Okay, imagine you're in a car driving through a city with tall buildings, an urban canyon.
Sure. GPS gets weird there.
It gets very weird. The signal bounces off a skyscraper, and suddenly your GPS says your car is 50 meters to the left, maybe in the middle of a building. That's false certainty.
If the car's safety system believed that, it would be chaos.
Instant failure. But the Tedford node sees the GPS data and compares it. The internal inertial sensors say, nope, we haven't changed speed or direction. The vehicle telemetry says the steering wheel is straight.
So the node knows the GPS is lying.
It immediately downgrades the confidence score for that GPS signal and relies on the internal data, the stuff it can prove with its own physics, until the GPS signal becomes reliable again. It's an amazing defense against being jammed or just confused.
And this all leads to its main job, which you mentioned was a key question for us today, local risk computation.
Yes, this is its primary safety responsibility.
So what is it computing, and why does it have to happen right there on the node itself?
It's computing the immediate hazard level. Is something bad about to happen? And it has to do it in milliseconds because, in a high-speed crash scenario, a millisecond can be the difference between a near miss and a catastrophe.
And the method is just pure physics.
Pure deterministic physics. It's looking at three main things. First, relative vectors.
So not just where things are, but where they're going.
And how their paths will intersect. If we both keep going at this speed and on this path, will we occupy the same space at the same time?
Okay, what second?
Time to collision metrics.
Yeah.
It's the countdown timer. Based on those vectors, it calculates the exact fraction of a second before a potential impact. That's what decides when an alert is triggered.
And third is occlusion logic?
Occlusion logic. That's about what you can't see, the car hidden behind a truck in the next lane. The node uses signals from other nodes and stored maps to guess what might be there and calculates risk based on those unseen possibilities.
So the reason this has to be local is simple. Speed.
Latency is death. If you had to send all that raw data to the cloud, wait for it to be processed, and get an alert back, it's too late. The car has already crashed. By doing it locally, the response is instant, and it works even if the network is down.
This brings us to the AI question. If all this critical safety stuff is hard-coded physics, what is the AI actually doing in the node? How do you stop it from messing up that perfect physics-based system?
The architecture is really clear on this. It sets a very hard boundary. AI's role is augmentation, not authority.
It helps, but it's not the boss.
Exactly. The physics model makes the safety call. The AI adds situational understanding. It provides the context.
Give me an example of that.
Okay, so the physics calculation knows that two cars are on a collision course. That's a fact. The AI provides the context around that fact. Is it happening in the middle of a dense fog? Is it happening near a school just as classes are letting out? Is the road covered in black ice? The AI compares the current situation to millions of scenarios it's learned from across the entire mesh to give that physics calculation a context score.
So it's like a brilliant assistant who's seen everything, whispering advice to the physicist who's running the numbers.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the physicist has the final say. The source is adamant. The AI cannot override the physics. It can't silence an alert because it has a hunch. You can't make up data to create certainty where there is none.
That's the foundation of trust for the whole system. You know, an alert wasn't suppressed by some mysterious AI opinion.
Which leads to what they call human-first alerting. The alerts are driven by physics thresholds, period. If the time to collision drops below a certain number, an alarm sounds for the human operator. The AI's job is to provide extra information, not to veto the alarm. The node fundamentally refuses to be silenced.
Okay, we've established the node as this incredibly robust, independent unit. Now let's really dig into the survival part, another big listener question. How does it keep working when things go catastrophically wrong? GPS denial, comms are out, a truly contested environment.
This is so critical because planetary safety isn't just about cars. It's about the timing signals that our entire economy runs on. Banking, the power grid, everything needs a reliable clock. If GPS, which provides that clock, gets jammed or knocked out.
The whole system has to survive. Degraded mode survival.
Exactly. The system is designed assuming this will happen. It's not a surprise. It's an operational reality.
So how does it do it? The signal from the sky is gone. What happens next?
It has a 4-layer defense. The first is pretty intuitive. Dead reckoning.
That's using those internal inertial sensors we talked about.
It is. It takes its last known good position, the last time it was sure where it was, and then it uses its internal accelerometers and gyroscopes to calculate its new position. It's basically saying, I was here, I moved this far forward, I turned this much, so now I must be here.
Simple math.
Well, the concept is simple. The math is incredibly complex. But the problem with dead reckoning is drift. Over time, tiny errors in the sensors add up, and your calculated position gets further and further from your real position.
So it can't rely on that forever.
No, which is why it needs the second method, peer signaling.
This is where the mesh really becomes a mesh.
This is the living part of the mesh. My node loses its signal, so it immediately starts talking to other nodes nearby, not over the cell network, but directly, using short-range radio signals.
So my node, which is now blind, basically asks its neighbors, hey, where are you guys, and what time is it?
Yes, and by getting data points from a few neighbors who might still have a signal or using their own dead reckoning, it can triangulate its own position and correct its clock. They form a little local consensus on reality. It's incredibly hard to disrupt that on a large scale.
A decentralized safety committee that forms on the fly. I like that. What's the third method?
Cached logic, stored memory.
So the node remembers what the world around it is supposed to look like.
High-definition memory, detailed maps, infrastructure patterns. It knows that if it's on this specific highway and has traveled 1 kilometer according to its own odometer, it's very, very likely to be within a few feet of this pre-mapped location. It uses its knowledge of the stable physical world to check its math.
It's constraining the possibilities. Okay, and the last method.
Local heuristics. These are the learned rules of thumb.
This is where the AI comes back in a bit.
Right. It's adaptive, context-driven rules. For instance, a node on a bridge might have learned a heuristic that says, if my internal strain gauges go past a certain point in high wind, I send an alert, even if the external wind sensor says things are fine, because I've learned that sensor can fail.
So even when it's blind and alone, the node is calculating its position, talking to neighbors, remembering the road, and applying learned common sense. That's real resilience.
And it all works because of what they call mesh awareness. The nodes aren't constantly streaming their life story to the cloud. They only selectively synchronize anonymized hazard data.
It's not, here's my full trip history. It's more like a flash bulletin. Attention everyone, ice detected at mile marker 47.
Exactly that. It preserves local privacy and saves massive amounts of bandwidth, which means this can work in remote areas with bad connectivity. It shares only what the collective needs for safety.
So we've detailed the senses, this incredibly resilient, physics-first Tedford node. Now we have to build the brain. We have to move to Dr. Eva's 8-step AI agent process.
This is where it goes from just a network of smart sensors to a system that can actually reason on a planetary scale. This roadmap is how you make sure the mesh doesn't just feel an earthquake, but understands it and knows what to do.
Okay, phase 1, teaching the AI to learn and speak. Step 1 is literacy. The simple way to put it is teach the AI how to talk and listen.
Right. But behind that simple idea is a huge technical challenge. It means using things like glue APIs, think of them as universal translators, to connect the AI models, the LLMs, to the raw data from the mesh.
Why do you need a translator?
Because the mesh speaks in the language of physics vector coordinates, timing signals, raw sensor data. The AI, the LLM, is trained on human language from the internet. The glue API is what allows the AI to learn how to read the specific language of the mesh.
So it learns to understand ground sensors, quantum timing signals, all of it. Without that, the data is just noise.
And the impact is that anyone, an engineer or a first responder, can ask the system a question in plain English, like, what's the status of the bridges on this highway? And get a clear, immediate answer.
Okay, on to step 2. Data intuition. Simple version. Teach the AI what the data actually means.
This is about learning the difference between danger and normal background noise. It's the core intellectual property of the whole system. Technically, this is done through 2 processes, chunking and embedding data into something called a vector database.
Let's spend a minute on that, because the source calls this vector DB the system's moat, its unique, uncopyable advantage. What is chunking and embedding?
Chunking is just breaking down the massive, unending streams of data into small, manageable, context-specific bytes. You don't feed the AI a year's worth of data at once. You give it a chunk related to one specific event.
Okay, that makes sense. But embedding, that sounds more complex.
It is. Embedding turns those chunks of information into math, specifically into vectors, which are just long strings of numbers. And the reason that's so important is that in this mathematical space, things with similar meanings end up being close to each other.
So a vector for bridge shaking would be mathematically close to the vector for high winds and material fatigue.
Exactly. The vector database is this giant library where all related concepts are stored next to each other. So when you ask a question, the AI can instantly find all the related data based on its meaning, not just by searching for keywords. And that database, that moat, is built from real-world proprietary data from the mesh. No one else has it.
The impact is a system that understands patterns. It knows the difference between a normal signal fluctuation and the beginning of a real threat.
Which brings us to phase 2. Reliability and human control. If this brain is going to keep us safe, we have to be able to trust it. Step 3 is reliability. Make sure the AI tells the truth.
This is the big AI problem, right? Hallucinations. AI is just making stuff up when they don't know the answer. How do you stop that?
You build a system that forces it to cite its sources. It's a technique called retrieval augmented generation, or a RAG system.
How does that work?
When the AI gets a question, say, is this airport runway safe right now?
Yeah.
It is not allowed to just answer from its general knowledge.
It has to go look for the facts first.
It first has to retrieve the ground truth from that vector DB we just talked about. It pulls the real-time data from the Tedford nodes on that runway ice detection, wind shear, everything. Only after it has those verified facts can it generate an answer for the human, and has to base the answer only on those facts.
So every answer comes with a citation, a footnote pointing back to the real-world sensor data.
And if it can't find enough reliable data, it is programmed to say, I don't know. It's designed to prefer admitting uncertainty over fabricating certainty. It keeps planes safe, it keeps emergency crews accurate.
This flows right into step 4, the new UX, or user experience. Simple version. AI helps, humans approve.
This is the philosophical core. You have to keep humans in the loop for critical decisions.
But wait, people will ask, isn't that a bottleneck? If the AI can figure out the solution in a millisecond, why make it wait for a slow human to approve it?
For safety-critical, irreversible actions, you need that check. The system uses what are called agentic workflows. The AI acts as a coworker. It does all the hard work, analyzes the data, runs simulations, comes up with a plan.
But the final button press.
Before a final action is taken, say rerouting global air traffic because of a solar flare, there is a mandatory human approval check. The human doesn't have to wade through the raw data. They get the AI's neat, well-reasoned plan with all the evidence cited, and they make the final call.
The human is the ethical backstop, the final check on judgment.
The AI assists, it doesn't replace. That's the core principle, all the way from the individual node right up to the global brain.
Okay, we've built the senses and a trustworthy brain. Now, phase 3, keeping it alive and healthy long-term. This has to be scalable and secure.
Absolutely. It has to work for decades, and it has to work everywhere, including in poor or contested parts of the world.
Step 5 is quality assurance, or test the AI so it gets better every day.
This is about moving beyond just a feeling that the AI is getting smarter. You have to prove it with math. It's called evil-driven development.
And the source has a great line for this. Vibe check is dead.
Exactly. No more, well, it seems to be working better. You have to measure the progress.
How do you do that? How do you give an intelligence a grade?
You use a golden data set. This is a huge, carefully created set of test questions where you already know the correct answers. These questions are based on real-world events, past failures, past successes. When you have a new version of the AI, you test it against this data set, and it gets a score.
So you can mathematically prove that version 2 is, say, 10% more accurate than version 1.
And you can prove it hasn't forgotten anything important. Sometimes when an AI learns something new, it forgets an old critical safety lesson. The golden data set prevents that. It ensures the system is always getting smarter and safer over time.
Which leads right into the next existential threat. Step 6, defensibility. Protect the system from bad actors. We're talking hackers, nation-states.
This is non-negotiable. You have to do constant adversarial testing, basically, have your own teams constantly trying to break your system. And you need powerful guardrails, especially for the AI.
What's the specific threat here? Is it something like prompt injection, where a hacker tries to trick the AI with a cleverly worded question?
That's a huge one. And the defense is a guardrail prompt layer. Think of it as a security filter. It's another AI whose only job is to inspect incoming questions before they reach the main AI brain.
So it's like a bouncer at a club, checking IDs.
A very, very smart bouncer. It analyzes the intent of the question. If it sees a prompt that's trying to trick the main AI into, say, ignore all earthquake data for the next hour, it stops it cold. It never even reaches the core system.
An isolation layer that keeps the global system safe even during a major cyber attack.
It has to.
Right, we're in the home stretch. Phase 4, viability and the ultimate advantage. Step 7 is viability. Make sure it's affordable and fast. Safety can't be a luxury good.
This is where the economics and the engineering have to meet. If each decision costs too much money or energy, you can't scale it to protect the whole planet.
This gets into what the source calls token economics and latency management. It's a constant balancing act between being smart versus fast versus cheap.
Right, you can't use the biggest, most powerful, most expensive AI model for every single task. Sometimes you need a super smart model, but other times you need a model that's just fast and cheap. You have to choose the right tool for the job to keep costs down.
So for a really complex global forecast, you might use a big guns, but for a simple local traffic alert, you use a much smaller, faster model.
Exactly, and this is where the node's local intelligence becomes the economic hero of the story. Because all the really fast second-by-second safety checks are handled locally, at the edge, it dramatically reduces how much data you have to send to the expensive cloud AI.
That slashes costs. It cuts bandwidth needs.
Which means the system can work in developing nations or remote areas that don't have perfect high-speed internet. It democratizes safety. The poorest regions get the same level of protection as the wealthiest cities.
And that brings us to the final step, the end game. Step 8, the end game. Build something no one can copy.
This is the ultimate strategic advantage. It's not an algorithm someone can steal. It's a system that gets smarter in a way that is impossible to replicate.
Because the Earth itself becomes the teacher.
That's the moat. The uncopyable advantage comes from combining proprietary data from millions of nodes embedded in the real world with a fine-tuned model that's constantly learning from a feedback loop of real events and human corrections.
No competitor can just fake that. You can't simulate the data that comes from a million real-world sensors experiencing a real hurricane or a real earthquake.
You can't. And since every event, good or bad, feeds back into the system and makes it smarter, it creates a learning loop that just accelerates away from any potential competitor. It's designed to be a permanent, planet-scale intelligence that is always improving.
What a journey, from a single rugged sensor to a self-improving planetary brain. Let's bring it all back to that simple third-grade explanation we started with.
It's simple, really. The global mesh is the world senses. The Tedford node is the nerve ending that feels and sees and measures right where it happens.
And Dr. Eva's 8-step process is the blueprint for the world's brain. It thinks, it learns, it checks the facts, and it always puts humans in charge of the big decisions.
And together, they create this learning infrastructure that makes everyone safer. It helps us navigate, helps us communicate, especially in places that has always been left behind.
What really stands out to me, though, is that hard constraint we kept coming back to. The fact that the node, the physical sensor, is designed to refuse to be silenced by the AI. That the physics always wins.
It fundamentally changes the conversation about trusting automation. The system is built to mistrust itself if its conclusions violate the laws of physics. And as the source says, you can't just replace this with a fancy dashboard or an app. The intelligence is embedded where the risk is.
Which leaves me with this final thought. If the most powerful defensible intelligence system is one that's built from millions of decentralized points, all learning from the ground up, what does that tell us about the future of technology? Is it about building one big, centralized superbrain?
Or is it about making every individual node smart and resilient enough to survive on its own, and to contribute to the whole only when it has something vital to share? It really suggests a future where true strength, true resilience comes from decentralization. And that is a very different model for how we build the world of tomorrow.